Hey, what's good, people? This is episode 167. This is the Option Podcast. I'm Jason DeBias. That guy looks like Troy Schlicker. We're going to find out. The episode starts. The episode starts right now. You can tell I'm teching my own show today, huh?
Yeah.
Entrance song had no. The entrance had no sound.
Yeah, that's how it goes sometimes. Like
Yeah.
technology is amazing most of the time, but like you get so used to it that the few times it goes, something doesn't quite work right. It just feels disturbing, or it feels kind of like unfamiliar when stuff isn't working properly. When it's like, oh, for the longest time you just dealt without having to deal with it at all. So, but yeah, just kind of keep running through it. I have a podcast myself, and so it's like you just kind of keep rolling with the punches and do what you got to do.
And that's actually where I want to start. I want to start with your podcast. But before we go, guys, this is episode 167 of the Option Podcast. I give the people what they want. That's Troy Schlicker. I know him through volleyball, but just like many volleyball players, he is so much more. Realtor, entrepreneur, good citizen. Probably you should be in running for citizen of the world. All right. So also, I understand no nonsense. I know you run a tight ship.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I appreciate that.
yeah.
And congratulations on having 167 episodes. Like, there's not a lot of people who start a podcast that get it that far, right? Like everyone hears about the Joe Rogans and the amazing podcast, and that's awesome. But like to get started at something that I'm sure you had no real idea how it would work out, and to be this far in is a testament to putting in the work and putting in the hours. It's awesome.
And very much like Rogan, when you do it, or at least for him, I share a similar story. Like when I first started doing this, it was just a chance for like me to invite my friends on and just talk a whole bunch of crap,
Mhm.
right? Like if you remember
Yeah.
Rogan, it was just comedians, right? And then it's become, other things. And,
Yeah.
when he dipped his toe in the political sand, he drew a line in that sand, and now, he's whatever. And
now he made $100 million because of it.
yeah, exactly. And it's like every time someone talks about him, he gets more downloads. It creates like this Streisand effect.
Yeah.
Like the whole COVID thing, like a year ago, he got 2 million downloads
Yeah.
because of people saying, "Oh, he's right wing or this that." But anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about. Talk to me a little bit about your podcast. I've known you through volleyball, and you've always been on my radar because you've always been like this interesting person. To me, it's not like the guys who whoop it up that are interesting. Those are a dime a dozen. But there's something about guys like you that kind of, you roar a little bit, hit the rewind button, then you're back. And I'm like, okay, what's this guy's story? So we're going to talk about volleyball in a minute, but I want to make this I don't know, like our living room, just like your living room. Look behind you. That's awesome. Look at that. What's your podcast called?
This is from starting podcasts and doing more video kind of stuff, and realizing that a blank beige wall doesn't look very good on video. And so it's like, hey, gotta try to spruce it up a little bit. I don't know if it's quite in the camera angle, but I even got the beach volleyball back over here, and some of the AVP. Let's see, we go.
There it is. I see it.
Yeah, I got the beach volleyball and some of the AVP badges from the qualifying days. But yeah, unfortunately for most volleyball players, even though we love it, it's not really something that pays the bills per se. So we have to have lives outside of the sport as well too. And mine just happens to be primarily in real estate, but also a little bit in the small business and entrepreneurial realm of things, because I'm here in Austin, Texas, and that's a big part of the community here. So it's been it's super fun to learn and try new things. That's one of the things that I loved about beach volleyball. It was, you could really do a lot of it. It's not an individual sport, but because it's just a two-person team thing, like there's a lot of things you can do on your own and with your teammate versus having to get a ton of people together. And so, which is, I think, very similar to a lot of small business stuff, a lot of being a realtor. It's about the work you're going to put in to making yourself better, educating yourself, and continue to grind away and do it. So yeah, that's I think very similar themes in a lot of the different things that I do in that regard.
Yeah, I like the wallpaper behind me, right? It's long overdue. I'm actually getting a painter, and it's not gonna be wallpaper anymore. It's actually gonna be my wall.
Yeah,
We're trying to find something maybe a little less attractive than oil on canvas, so it's not a glare or whatever. But I'm literally
sure.
in a month, probably this month or early next month, this is going to be literally my wall, not wallpaper. So
Nice.
I appreciate backdrops and this and that, and
Like I say, you
yeah,
go into it having to think different things. You talk about like I got to make sure I don't have the glare, and I got to make sure
yeah,
that'll actually look good on camera versus having it look good in person. Not that you don't want to look good in person as well too, but it's funny when you start doing video or podcasts that have video elements to it. The your mindset kind of changes in some of the things that you have to do.
yes. So for everybody listening at home, Troy is like a legit volleyball player, amongst so many other things, because I have an audience besides volleyball now. And before I drive us both off the cliff, where I wanted to go in the beginning, um, was talk. I wanted to talk about your podcast. What's the podcast called? Walk us through how it started, and the floor is yours, my
Yeah,
man.
well, I appreciate it. Yeah, so a few years back, probably it's probably close to three now or so. I was doing different research online, and it heard that podcasts, seemed like a thing that was becoming more and more popular. Uh, and so maybe I should try to start one of my own and start a real estate podcast. And the very first podcast I did, which is actually still up, was me just talking into a mic onto my phone to record and then post later. Like I didn't do video, didn't do any of that stuff. And as I'm recording the podcast episode, I'm like, there's no way I'm going to do five of these, let alone 167 of these like you did. And so I was like, yeah, I see where like maybe other people like to listen to them, but I'm not going to be able to record them. And so that one episode was up by itself for about a month or two. And then in starting to network like I do as a real estate agent a lot and just meet people, I would find and get to hear really interesting stories about why people got into the lines of work they did, why they started businesses they did. And so I'm like, this seemed like an interesting podcast to me, was talking about and other people's stories. Like I enjoy asking those questions. It's not like sounds like you do too, learning about what people are up to and being able to kind of highlight that. So the podcast itself is called the Austin Spotlight Podcast, and I've had it up and running now for again about 3 years. And there's probably about 80 or so episodes. Definitely don't get an episode in every single week, which would probably be the true goal if it was like where I was making my money type of thing. But get 30 or so in a year and get a chance to interview a lot of really interesting people that are doing startups here in Austin, people that are small mom and pop businesses. And so there's a wide variety, but it's just really cool to hear the stories about what got them uh, passionate about their business, what got them into doing what they do and why they love doing it. And so it's a lot of fun to me. The cool thing is it's like there is starting to be some traction, as you've seen. Like you get to a point where, okay, the volleyball is great, but there's more to be done here. And so got in got ranked as like the number 7 Austin based podcast recently on Feed Sprout, I think it is, or Feed Spot, one of the two. Online organization, which probably doesn't mean a whole lot because I don't know that it requires a whole lot to get a website and rank stuff. But it was pretty cool that they even recognized it all. And I've actually had PR companies reach out periodically now too to specifically get guests on versus me always having to do the outreach to do it. So it's a cool thing, and I enjoy doing it. Enjoy doing it so much that I actually have started a second podcast that is just real estate focused as well too. And so
That's what
just
happens.
just honestly started that this last month and did a little differently because for me, and I won't know about for you, but the hardest part is continually finding the guests, right? Like when you first start your podcast, you have, oh, these people sound really cool. And then it's like, well, shoot, I don't want it to end after 3 months type of thing. And so I got some reoccurring guests in different fields in real estate: mortgage loan officer, real estate attorney, interior designer, home organizer, and stuff. And just having them on once a month to talk about their area of real estate versus, talking about just buying or selling homes, because most people don't do that except maybe every 5 or 10 years. But most people have an unorganized pantry. Most people might, again, down the road need to refinance a mortgage or pull equity out of their home. a lot of people may have questions when their neighbor puts a fence on their yard. How do they deal with that from a legal perspective? So I think I'm excited about that one as well too. And we'll see if we can get that up to number 7. And the goal for that one is number 7 in real estate podcasts in the nation, but it'll take a little time.
Hey, with time, right?
Yeah.
Right. What was it? You got to break some eggs and make an omelet or something like that.
There you go.
Yeah. Before there was a diamond, there was gold. Yeah. And I guess my suggestion I would give to you, because not that I started off the right way. I take it from a guy who's made a ton of mistakes, but I will toot my own horn where I say I have a magnificent ability to self-correct. So, because that's something we as human beings are equipped with. We're equipped with the ability to be flawed, but also, which isn't used this often, the ability to self-correct. I would say if you're trying to do something more organized, like on a weekly basis, where that's like the same time every week, less is more. Go half hour, go small. The reason why I got away with what I'm getting away with is because you see the average time on some of my episodes, right? Trevor was 38 minutes, but that was an anomaly, right? Kristen Nuss was an hour and a half. Ruth Nelson, one of the long time, who's been coaching. I don't know how many times the rules change in 50 years, but that's a long freaking time to be adapting.
It feels like they change every other year, so it's a lot of.
You know what I mean? And the woman has 500 NCAA wins in 16 years.
Yeah.
Is doing something right. So. Yeah, so longer form you can get away with periodic and random, because people will stay for you with the long haul or watch it and listen to it in chunks. I live in California. Being stuck in traffic is your life, which is why podcasts are the most viewed out here. I think Texas, New York, in no particular order, Texas, New York, and California, as far as podcast listeners. And more people, right? That quantitatively makes sense, right? So the piece of advice I would give you is if you do a weekly show, less is more. Half hour, doesn't even have to be live. Even though when you start doing this more, you're gonna come out. You're gonna be like, I need to reach out to someone to show me how to do this live.
Well, so I do the Austin Spotlight one. I've done that live.
Yes, I saw it. I was like, let's go.
I do that one live and then just record it like I'm sure you do, and just take the audio and use that for the podcast portion of it. The real estate one I'm not planning to do live, because the other goal with that one is to be able to use that in my real estate business as well too, right? Like to have 5 or 6 clips of really good pieces of information, hopefully at least, in each podcast that I can then put on other social media platforms. Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and stuff. And so that one I'm recording. So and it takes the pressure off the guests, because a lot of times guests get a little nerve-wracked about going live or even just being on video. And so doing it that way and not having it be live and being like, we can fix most of the stuff is fixable afterwards. So that way it kind of takes the pressure off people.
You ever have a guest that didn't know that it was going to be video?
No, I definitely tell them all that, like how I record it and stuff. So, I mean, it's possible that they, I don't read all the emails I get. So it's definitely possible that somebody hasn't really. I know I've talked to people who have mentioned that they've been, usually they'll say it afterwards, but they'll mention that they were really nervous to do it. And so that's, but I don't know that I've really ever had anyone that's come off that way. Like they all seem to be
right.
Seem relatively in their comfort zone.
So I had a coach who was also an old friend, Chi DiMaggio. And I never dawned on me to tell her it was video, because this is a woman who's been like beautiful her whole life. All right.
Yeah.
She, even now at 63, she's pretty, or 68. Still pretty, like one of these strawberry blondes from New Orleans, got that little, has a little Cajun when she needs to have it on her social circle, but that voice changes, is all business when it's time to take care of business. So when I told her she was on the podcast, she's like, did you say video? She's like, I can't do video. And I was like, bitch, you better go call the Crayola people and fix your face and do whatever it is, do whatever it is that women do that has to make themselves look good. But the whole time she's making up, and the whole time she's zooming the camera away and this and that. And And what I did was what you do is you concentrate and you make it about the subject matter. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, these people forget their own camera. They forget,
Yeah.
I made it about volleyball, and she's like trying to answer the question and subconsciously forgetting about her camera angle. She's
Yeah.
talking. And that's what we do with our guests, right? I don't mean to make my guests feel uncomfortable. I don't mean to ask a question that's going to make my guests cry.
Yeah.
Like Tom Sorensen, we had a great conversation about Marv Dunphy, and Dunphy is the old Pepperdine coach and the Olympic coach in '88 gold medal.
Mhm.
Well, has a special place in a lot of people's hearts. The
Sure.
people that played for him, Sorensen will say that. John Mayer will say that. Greg Schenkel, who's a middle no one talks about, who helped Dane Blanton and those guys win a chip in 1992. That's how long he's been there. Stewart Leak Stork, all of them have something to say. But what I didn't know, because I'm not,
Sure.
I'm I'm a
You're not
man.
in
I'm
the
a
inner
man without a
circle, but
people.
yeah,
Yeah, like I got a great circulation of friends, but I'm a man without a people. So I didn't
sure.
know. I'm like, I ain't trying to make you cry, but okay, cool. So at some point, I would like you to help me with the live function, because I'm only able to go live if my guest is in studio. The
Okay.
equipment I have is great HD and can up convert to 4K, but the capability as far as frames per second is only available 59, like 59 frames per
Yeah.
second. And most universally things are like 29 or 30 frames per second. So when I
Mhm.
go live, my data rate, the bit rate exceeds its
What they can do.
whatever,
Yeah.
and then
No,
it
I will
starts
say
then
that
it starts
I do think,
chopping, and then it just freezes. So,
yeah, I will say going live generally probably is going to have a little bit lower video quality. So
but I'm able to do
yeah,
it in studio, because in
yeah.
studio the cameras are here,
Hmm.
and my video switcher, which I'm going to show you. Sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah,
the switcher is hardware. So,
sure.
let me go to my camera for a sec. Looks like this. So this thing right there,
Yep.
you know what I'm saying? There's no freezes on that. If the whole world goes to
Yep.
hell, this thing keeps
Yeah. That's
recording.
still
So
going, run
yeah,
strong. Yeah.
this is called the Atomos Ninja Flame. So
Yeah.
that has really helped me in studio. But I guess the mistake I made was the availability and capability of doing it in Zoom, and at the same
Mhm.
time trying to live stream on Facebook or whatever, and this and that. That's
Yeah.
where the maximum bit rate exceeds. And maybe I'd love to off camera. I'd love to have a
Yeah. Yeah.
conversation with
Those
you
things
about that.
definitely. Yeah.
Hmm.
Definitely. See if
So
there's something that can be figured out. Because I mean, also a lot of times the social media platforms like you to go live, like they tend to push that out. So it's a way to maybe reach an audience that
mhm.
won't watch the or listen to the podcast afterwards. And, um, yeah, so that's the main reason I started doing it live was that you could tell that Facebook specifically, you would get more people viewing it when it was a live video
Right.
than if you just posted after the fact. And so, like, you gotta listen to what their algorithms,
Yeah.
what they like and how they want you to do stuff. And so that's kind of how I did that.
Perfect. Yeah. So you also have a way. For everyone who doesn't know, you're a realtor and a broker in Austin, Texas. What's the name of your firm? Or
Reserve Realty.
Reserve Realty. You have a gift that you didn't know that I knew of, on how to talk to people that makes the subject matter easy to understand, and at the same time not make them feel like an asshole. uh, um, where does that come from? I mean, just reading your reviews online, and also just communicating with volleyball people and you talking to me. Um, where does that come from?
No, I appreciate that. I think, I mean, I don't know that it's something super conscious. My parents were both teachers, so I think like having kind of that teacher mentality of being able to uh, try to explain stuff and understanding that not everyone is going to see things the same way that you see them. And so, like in a lot of cases, especially as someone who also does kind of like to have not so much arguments, but likes to have discussions amongst their friends. Like
There are
you
arguments.
need to, yeah, but you need to be able to try to convince someone. You have to be able to try to show someone the most basic form. Like if you're just trying to have a hard and heavy argument, I'm going to yell louder than you, that's not usually going to get through. And so if you can generally have a way to show specific information, make it relatively easy to understand, I feel like you're a lot more likely to get through to whatever subject you're trying to do, whether it's someone who doesn't understand who doesn't understand why you called a double when they think their hands are perfectly clean, or if you're trying to help someone figure out their $1 million mortgage and why the interest rate and points and all the closing costs are what they are, and they're stressed out of their mind because this is the largest purchase they made in their life. Like, you have to be able to be calm and kind of really just step back, kind of get in their shoes and try to say stuff the way, reach them where they're at, right? Because everyone's a little bit different as far as what the best way that it is to kind of communicate with them. And so trying to figure that out is generally going to get you the best results.
I think we stumbled onto something very important, and I'd like to take the ball and run with it, with your permission,
Yeah.
right? Like, I was an acting major, right? I was in a fine arts
Okay.
program at Marymount Manhattan College. Graduated with my BA in theater performance, and there's a reason why like older Shakespearean actors are better performers, because they have a mixture of voice and body language that helps you understand it. Like, there are
Mhm.
some people, if you ever go to your first Shakespeare play, you're like, that's was that
That's not
English?
what they,
Was
that's
that
not,
English?
it's
Was
like
that
being
English?
typecast,
Yeah, was that
right? It's like,
English? No, but was
yeah.
it what just happened there? I what? Right? So you have younger actors that will be like, the rascal hath removed my horse and tied him I know not where, right? And some Shakespearean guys is like, I don't need that. You're
Yeah.
stop, just stop, you know. And then you have the older ones that are like, if I move but 4 foot by the squire, further afoot, I shall break my wind.
I
You
was
know,
I was
so
never
so,
did much
but
theater
but
stuff,
you
but
see how
like, but
both
there,
get the point across, but one is
sure.
not
Yeah.
condescending or
Yeah.
patronizing. Like the former was more like, I'm walking you through it for you guys that think that don't know better, and the
Yeah.
older guys like, I can say it and you get the point, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so I guess I was supposed to lead to a question which I forgot, but I was just so much into acting. No, I think no. This is where I was going with this. In a world where you want to have a conversation, and there's so many people that are dismissive because you're not a complete expert in that field,
Mhm.
has created a huge wall in general communication and introducing a topic, right? Again, we were talking about Rogan, right? That he got in a little hot water for COVID and this and that. And something that escapes people is that he's not bringing you the news. He's just having a conversation. And the
Yeah.
point I was trying to make is, in order for experts to educate us, we need a moron to ask the question. Because experts in the virology podcast, excellent podcast, or a volleyball, coach your brains out, John Mayer, right?
Mhm.
Very rarely is a person who knows as high IQ in that subject going to ask a question they already know the answer to. They can't manifest in their mind the audience is interested in this question. Or one
Yeah.
person sent me a question, so they represent everybody. Some kind of nonsensical straw man fallacy. That guy's a spokesperson for people that don't know volleyball everywhere. And the thing I like
it's
about
it's
you,
one
go ahead.
it's one of the reasons I think that a lot of times great players don't always make great coaches. Is that so? Probably one of these examples in high school. I went to a relatively small high school, so we just had like a few math teachers, right? But so everyone, if you took geometry, had to have this one math teacher, and he was actually really good at math, but he was too good at math. So he didn't, most people didn't like him as a teacher because he couldn't explain the problem when it came in geometry, to where, because most kids don't go in, loving math or understanding it or having it just click with them. I've always been good at math. And so like when he would do a problem and he would skip 2 steps and kind of get to the third step, like I was like, oh, I know how he got there. But if you're not good at that subject, you don't understand how he got there. And so a lot of times experts don't do a great job of explaining stuff because they don't realize the 5 steps they skipped over to get from A to E they just realized they got there really quick, and that's what made them great at what they do, but it doesn't always make them the best teachers and coaches necessarily.
And since we're in the subject of volleyball, because we have a mixed audience, volleyball is a great example. There are, well, any sport, basketball, NBA. I will say this on a general level in terms of sports because it's the best way we that's our wheelhouse as well, and we know how to communicate that. In sports, a great player who turns into a coach is rarely going to hurt your game. Rarely, not never, because there's some people that hurt your game too. They're just levels to how much they can help. Mm-hmm. Can you help this much or can you help that much? Jose Loyola right now, he's the USA beach volleyball coach. Mm-hmm. His coaching staff has more coaching experience than him. But the man knows how to win. Yep. When he was coaching Try and Trevor, I was just like, okay, interesting. And everybody's like, oh, he's a great player. Why wouldn't you want him as your coach? And I'm just like, shut up, get out of here with that. But then you saw him coach, it was Manhattan Beach. It was Reed Pretty and Trevor Crabb. And was just like, they were splitting block. And Jose's like, no. His feel and what was going to happen next told him, boom, that went beyond coaching IQ. Just what your eyes can see. That made him a better coach. Also, English not being his first language helps. Like his assistant coach, Pompilio, and you'll love this, says, good serves make good defense. 5 words. That would have taken me a paragraph to explain the what and the why or whatever about competitive serving, getting them out of system, they're losing their court vision, blah, 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 blah. I just talked 100 miles an hour when this guy, this son of a nada, said good serves make good defense. He succeeds. I failed. I mean, in that particular regard. So
no, exactly. Yeah.
So, and that was the point I was trying to make. Sometimes if you can educate people where they have a general knowledge of something, everybody can educate themselves. Because it's even if whether you're the kind of guy where I educate you on something and you're like, this is interesting, I want to know more, or I educate you on something and you're like, all right, that's all I need to know about that, and moves on. Those things are still wins, and those things we as regular civilians should have an opportunity to talk about that. You know. Mm-hmm. Full circle, going back to the real estate thing. I'm really, really impressed that on some of the feedback you got from a lot of your clients that are like, I don't know how to sell a house. I don't know interest rates. What do you mean by interest rate? I don't even, what?
No, so. And we do, like, right, in being an expert in the field, for me, real estate, like, there are definitely times that you have to take yourself out of there and realize, okay, my client, or the general population isn't going to know as much as you. So you can't, we like to have acronym, every industry has their own acronyms and their own kind of language for how they talk about stuff. And it's, it makes it a barrier to entry, not necessarily intentionally, but it makes it harder to understand when you're talking about PITI and HOA fees and, all this stuff. And for somebody else, they're like, what does any of that mean? And so they say being able to explain something in a very simple manner and understand that someone's potentially coming from a very different place. A first-time home buyer probably has almost no knowledge of stuff, where someone that's made 5 or 6 moves in their life and just needs to relocate from California to Texas because it's getting too expensive in California, and their Silicon Valley job made it to Austin. They may not need as much they may not need some of the real estate 101 because they've bought and sold 5 or 6 homes in the last 10 to 20 years. So.
Yeah, no doubt. I think also, I guess to summarize this, what I was trying to say was you don't need to be a chef to talk about steak.
Yeah, that's one of the things that just in general in life has been kind of crazy is, one, you have people who aren't experts that just want to claim that they're experts and stuff. But like, we also just don't have near as much dialogue and discussions as it feels like we used to, and definitely as much as we should have. Like you're talking about, Rogan getting in trouble for COVID stuff. Like, people should be able to have a discussion, because that's how even smart people need to have discussions with people who disagree with them, because it's not that they're going to necessarily change your views, but it solidifies a lot of times your views because you hear the other side of the coin. And so the fact that it feels like too often most people don't just want to argue instead of having a discussion is kind of disappointing.
And that's the problem that we need to solve, right? It's some people, it's, and I mean, some of the pushback on some subject matters you introduced, the argument is impulsive. It's not even like they didn't even take in the whole sentence, you know? Right?
Exactly.
Like, yeah, like, for,
At the same point in time, though, too, I do believe that in general, it's like, unfortunately, the news that we hear, the political stuff that you hear on
right.
both sides
Yep.
tends to amplify the margins. And so for most people,
Right.
I think they have a better ability to have discussions. Like it's not as bad as it seems like when you have Republicans and Democrats or left and right media
Right.
stuff talking about whatever. Most people can
I
have,
call them Democrips and Republicans.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
with
it's to that
with
level. It's
apologies
like,
to Crips and Bloods. I ain't trying to
yeah, yeah.
offend nobody.
But yeah, like it should you should be able, like, but I do think most people, it's, life is in general more civilized than a lot of times the um, media wants to make it out to seem.
No doubt. No doubt.
That's why it's fun to come on podcasts like this, because then you get to chat it up with someone else who likes to talk about stuff, and it's pretty rare on podcasts to,
and that's the goal. I just want, and
yeah,
I want
you just want to talk. Like you're someone that likes having
yeah,
conversations, so
yeah.
usually you can go a lot of different places, and
There's also nothing wrong with leaving the question out there too, because that's
yeah.
something like post podcast you wanna, and those are honestly those are even like my favorite films. Like there's a movie called Eye in the Sky with Helen Mirren,
Okay,
and I believe the late Alan Rickman was in it, and it was about a drone that was going after a certain target that had civilians, right? And the argument is, do you take your target and the civilians around him with it, or do you not do it? So
sure.
there's this argument, and there's this inciting incident that puts all of this into play. The climatic series, like consistent with cinema, where after the film was over, like my wife and I had opposing views. She's like, no way would you, yes way you would do that. I'm like, no, you don't do that. And all because they introduced the subject matter that left the question out there,
Sure.
inspired conversation, and that's what my podcast is. That's what I'm hoping. I like the way your podcast is going. I really, really do. I see the direction it's going. So for the volleyball people who thought we were going to be talking about stories about Austin, about the AVP qualifier, main draw. All right, cool. Let's scroll up to this part. You guys can click up to this part. I'll timestamp it.
You gotta take this part
volleyball.
of it so people can, yeah, can skip the boring stuff if they want to.
So, in the world of volleyball, where there's so much talent everywhere, right? I live in Hermosa Beach, right? If I never left the zip code, I probably have everything I need as far as talent. But I'm a New Yorker, so New Yorkers, we're global, so we know everybody everywhere. So you got on my radar because Rafa, who I've met a couple of times, I had on one of my episodes, Sports Debate Tuesday.
Okay.
And Rob McLean hates talking about volleyball. He says, I'll do the podcast with you. We talk about every sport except volleyball.
Anything else?
So I made him do this. And it was crazy. It was a 9-minute segment, and all I did was sit there and be quiet. And everybody's like, oh, Jason's not letting this guy talk. And I'm like, he doesn't want to talk about it. Because every time he opens, he's an active player. So every time he opens his mouth, he feels like he's got to play against and work with these people. This is partnership opportunities. So I get it. So I'm like, fine. Even Casey Jennings went out there and called him out in the middle of his practice, cursing him out, because of something we said about Casey and Kerry. But so he's like, no more volleyball. But Rafa and Bobby Jones lives in Austin, Project Serve, right? Doing good things out there. And there were a whole bunch of people like, you have to put this match on your top 5 qualifier matches. And I saw the way you were playing, and I saw really good blocks, timely ace. In fact, match point was an ace, right? I was like, who the F is Troy Schlicker? So bear with me. I'm gonna actually put in a highlight. And we can, sorry, where is it? I gotta find it. There. No, that's not it. Let's go to the YouTube. All my exes live in Texas. Casada, Schlicker against Miller and Ryan. This match went to the night lights came out, man, and nobody went home. It was a party atmosphere, and another crowd that was main draw worthy. Look at me
Quantitatively speaking.
stuttering.
Well, he who hits the tape wins, and also he who serves left shoulder wins. That's match point. And Casada,
That was it.
forgot the
That was
high
match
school
point.
last name. He
Yep.
and check.
Now here's the zoom
Schlicker.
in. See the backdrop on the crowd?
This
Oh.
club face control.
Oh,
check.
hell.
No,
Oh,
it's
hell
the
no.
YouTube commercial.
Yeah, isn't that awesome? Aren't they
Yeah.
just wonderful? I'm gonna skip that because I wanted to see the zoom in of the people behind the camera as well as before. What a great shot. Austin's a very humid place, right? So you get to so
Austin
humid.
gets hot. I mean, it depends on where you're from, where you're coming from. Like if you're from the Houston area, if you're from Florida and stuff, Austin feels dry. But if you're from, because California really is really dry. You have the ocean there. You think it'd be wetter, but it's not. It's
Desert
dry.
weather, but
Yeah, and in Arizona, then it does feel more humid, and it's just generally pretty hot, even earlier in the year, right? So it was. I'm sure. Yeah, as far as why, I think we just had a really big qualifier. Was one of the reasons. Like Austin, the AVP had just kind of been getting going to, they've been in New Orleans a couple years
right.
prior, but they had obviously had their long hiatus, and so kind of getting going. It was the first year that they were in Austin. I think Texas, in my opinion, has probably like the third largest volleyball community, at least beach volleyball community in the country, behind California and Florida. And so the fact that it was actually a tournament in the state, we had a lot of people trying to qualify, period, but then also a lot of additional people that love the sport and don't play at an open level, but wanted to support. And then when you had a couple of local kids, which, there hadn't been a Texas team make the main draw in quite a few years, it was a lot of fun. And then between under the lights, it was the only match going, so everyone could kind of hang out with it. Like it definitely had a main draw feel for sure.
It really did. And I love, before we got on the podcast, we talked about the electric atmosphere, like something you can't feel or touch or whatever, just this energy. And again, humid days or hot days in Houston are warm nights. So it's a great nightlife because of that. Like Hawaii is good like that. New York, New York in the summertime, we're having roof parties because we know humid days or whatever. Hermosa Beach, yeah, have a roof party out here at night. Good luck with that. It is
exactly.
freezing. It is brick. It's true desert weather. So I guess I just want to have a little fun with this question. Was there a second win granted to you by the audience? By the crowd watching? Was there, just knowing that you had the wind, you were Superman with the wind at your back?
I mean, it definitely gave you some additional energy. It'd be impossible to not think that. I mean, the only way that it could be a negative, I guess, kind of like we were talking about going live in this podcast, right? Like if you're a lot of, especially generally qualified level teams, don't get to play in front of a 500 to 1,000 person audience, and so there are times that can get to people. I grew up playing basketball and I got to play a little bit at a small college even too, although honestly my high school games probably had some bigger crowds than the college team did. But so for me, it was always fun to be able to feed off that extra energy that was in the crowds. But I also do get kind of locked in. Like I know Rafa was probably a little bit more engaging with the crowd specifically.
And that's the balance.
For me, and for me, you can feel the energy around you, but at the same point in time, it still just kind of feels like it's us two against those two on the court, working to beat them. But yeah, just the overall environment was probably had to be my most exciting volleyball tournament that I got to play in, or match that I got to play in.
I like that. I liked your locked in reference because it really describes a type of athlete, right? For anyone that's ever seen For the Love of the Game, Kevin Costner is pitching in unfriendly territory, and he hears all the noise, and then he turns this particular mechanism on, and then when it's on, he can see them, but he can't hear them anymore, and that's a particular type of athlete that's locked in.
Honestly, those the from a basketball standpoint, it's harder in beach volleyball because you don't really might have a little bit of fans for one specific side or the other. Obviously, those guys probably felt like the away team.
Yeah.
But honestly, being the away team was always kind of the most fun. To go into someone else's building, have the other crowd be hyped because they want to beat you, and to go in there and silence them and beat their team was actually almost more fun than having the home crowd with you sometimes.
Yeah, no doubt. Like I played in Germany for a military community team, and then one of their club teams eventually. Stuck around, played a little pro ball. You're right. Visiting certain the military communities were even were worse than the German teams because, like I played for Frankfurt, and then for Darmstadt, and we visited Baumholder or Wiesbaden. Man, the crowds were just crazy. And then I was at Hunter College Division III program for like one semester for like a cup of coffee. I didn't want to go to college. And you visit Jamaica, Queens, it's a bunch of crazy West Indian dudes that are really good ballers, and a team that we should have beat 3-0 was like wound up 5 because of that. It wound up in 5. So I do appreciate some of the atmospheres. Was Austin one of your favorite venues to play?
Yeah, I mean, it's again because of the atmosphere. It definitely was. We got to play one of the qualifier matches earlier in the day on Stadium Court, which was a cool experience as well. Because the Stadium Court there was built specifically for the tournament. The other courts were kind of courts that we get to play on regularly. So in that regard, it's kind of fun traveling to some different places and, to play out on the pier on New York in qualifiers, or to play actually in Manhattan Beach, kind of the birthplace there, to play. There's a fun tournament in Aspen, Colorado, Motherlode over there. Fun.
I emceed last year.
It's not the best beach. It's some pretty
it's beautiful.
Pretty shallow sand there, but like you're sitting there like literally in the middle of the mountains playing volleyball.
It looks like Holland, for Christ's sakes.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like some of those FIVB stops that are in like Switzerland or Gstaad or something.
That's what Aspen looks like.
Yeah, and so those, as far as experiences that way, were probably more fun. Because you get to, from in Austin, since I live here, you get to play on those courts anyway. But obviously, when you're playing pickup or training, you don't generally have the crowd there cheering you on too often.
No doubt. I emceed at Aspen last year for the Motherlode. I'm gonna do it again.
It's been a few years since I've been there, and so I definitely need to make it back.
It was like one of those last minute invitations, and my wife was like, go, because I'd rather have you regret going than regret not going. So got my car, drove 11 hours, and, spent a little bit of money on a spot.
It's unfortunately it's not the cheapest place to stay.
No, but peace of mind sometimes has a price, right?
Oh, yeah. Definitely. when we were there, this was with a different partner. One of the years we were there, we got to play against the Canadian team that had played in the Olympics like a year or two earlier. Josh Binstock and Marty
Saxton.
Saxton, yeah.
Right.
The start of that match didn't go so well, but other than that, we, considering who we were up against, it was like, okay.
A lot of good local talent out there, right?
Like, a ton of good local.
Lars Bassi and Ian Carlson was there. He played with Lars Bassi, who's a local product. They beat Samuels and Burek. Yep. And Carly Wopat and Spieler made the finals and lost to oh my goodness.
They've had a ton before I even went there. I know like
Katie Piles. Katie Piles is sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Patterson, like 1 year Patterson and Rosie won the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
The Baumgren brothers won it back-to-back years, I think. So there's been a lot of really good players.
Casey Jennings and
Jeff
Jennings
Samuels won it not that long ago. Yeah.
Derek Zimmerman, how's that for a name for the past?
Derek Zimmerman. I saw Dan Camacho walk off the court because they didn't like the ref. The ref that they brought in was not good, but he literally left 2/3 of the way through the game. Through the second set and stuff. So there's some good stories from Aspen.
The sad thing is, like, Camacho is probably right, but he's such a different cat. Everybody was like, everybody's like, what Camacho do?
No one claimed the ref was good. The other, like, literally in a professional match with the ref, which at that point in time, you just go by what the ref says. The other team gave, because he was playing with Zimmerman, it was Zimmerman and Camacho. The other team gave them a point that the ref had given against them because he's like, yeah, that's the right thing to do. Like, which generally when you go ref, the ref makes a bad call. That's not on you when you're kind of playing at those stakes. So
Yeah.
yeah, it wasn't a good ref, but yeah, also.
And it's also the
most
wrong
people-
guy to make a call against too, right? Like
Yeah.
Camacho he's a different cat, yo.
Yeah.
You know, like I was coaching Jeff Samuels and Dave Palm, right? And Huntington, which probably the worst job I've ever done. It was the easiest layup in qualifier history. We dropped the last round to Brandon Clemens and Dylan Merrick, who, by the way, that was 2019, and talk about two guys that are playing their best volleyball, so I take that back. I'm not that mad at that. But Palm said he was playing in Austin with Camacho.
Okay.
And we're at dinner, and Jeff is like, wait, is he still playing? Is he still alive, right?
Yeah.
So I'm watching a live stream, right? And during the timeout, Camacho is smoking a cigarette with his right hand and petting a cat. He had a cat in the player's box. He's petting a cat with his left.
That's yes.
When I say talk about
Camacho's a good guy, but
talk
he
about
is
someone who's good
unique,
for the sport, dude.
like,
He's
like
every sport got to have one of those, man.
Every person's unique. Dana's extra unique.
So you played a lot of qualifiers with Rafa. So who are some of the other people that you play with on a regional scene?
Yeah, no, I mean Rafa definitely was kind of the one that
you guys play real well
really
together.
Because he's he was kind of around the first time that DVP started to kind of pick back up, and so I know they had been in New Orleans a few years and had been doing it. Obviously, Manhattan Beach had been going strong, like even when the AVP wasn't there for a number of years. That tournament was still going strong. And I'm sure there were some others out in California, but I wasn't really traveling at that point in time. So the other guys that I played with, Kirk Atwood was a longtime partner, but he was a little bit older than me, and so we just played kind of Texas tournaments there against guys like Colin Caslow, Drew Hamilton, who now is the star coach for the girls out of LSU.
TKN, yeah.
And so
TKN,
we had talked about a couple years ago. We had talked about trying to maybe play a qualifier, and so I asked him about playing Austin 2-3 years ago, whatever it was, and he said he was too out of shape now that he was a coach to want to get in the playing side of the game. But really, really good player.
Yeah, an exceptional coach.
He's turned into a really good coach.
An exceptional coach. Look, I've been coaching 25 years, so I know. I can in 5 minutes I could separate a glorified babysitter from someone who knows what they're doing to someone saying, "Oh my God, that dude's sharp." Going all the way to the ladder, I put Drew Hamilton and quasi in that category. I mean, I met him through Russell Brock, who was the coach at LSU, and they were coaching together at LSU, and they moved as a unit where you didn't even know who the head coach was. They moved as a pair everywhere they went.
Sure.
The showcases, the Get Noticed showcases, I was doing out here for Beach Volleyball National Events, doing color commentary for that. They were there all the time, so it wasn't just Todd Rogers or John Mayer or like Dan or like the local coaches. They've made all the trips, and just shrewd recruiting and just high IQ coaching. And I'm really, really glad to see him at TKN because I think, and I'm rooting for them to go to the Olympics. For the women, right, where you're only allowed 2 teams. I personally think it's a 3-horse race to a 2-team Olympics, but you and everybody else has every right to disagree with me and say there's more than 3 teams in that mix because the women have gotten so good. It could be a bloodbath.
Yeah.
It could be a bloodbath this Olympic year.
No, I mean it'll be interesting because I will say it does feel like they're deeper. I haven't been following the international side of it for women's as closely the last 6 months to a year. So I don't know if they've had the top line success, obviously, of a April or Carrie. I mean, no one really has any right to have kind of that level of success like that.
Yeah, well, and
That's
we're not in love with
especially
2 years
talking
ago.
players.
They're not even playing right now. So I'm not.
Yeah.
We ain't trying to be in
But
love
like,
with
but
in love with the
yeah,
past.
I'd agree that like there's easily probably 3 teams, if not, depending on, you could still easily see teams kind of switch it up in the next 6 months to make a run for it. I mean, again, Nick and Phil switched it up like it halfway through the run back for Brazil and still ended up making it. So I don't know that even necessarily all the teams are specifically set at this point in time. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes over the next.
We could talk about the men later. I mean, that's a hot mess. So we ain't talking about the men scene right now. But like, and we will. We're gonna get to them in a minute.
Yeah.
So
So what I'm saying, but for either side that is
Yeah.
trying to do the qualification, like it's just
the men, I'm just happy if we get one team in.
It may not be. Yeah, the men's side has been challenging. Like I say, on the women's side, yeah, there'll definitely be like we'll get our 2 teams. Not worried about that, but it'll be interesting to see if it's going to be the current pairs of women that are going to stay with it for 2 years, or will there be some breakups and reshuffling with who those women are or who those teams are?
Right. So for me, actually, I got a speaker volume on in this place. Hold on, I want to get rid of the echo.
Yeah.
I was like, what's all that noise? That's better. So for me, I got TKN, right? I got Sarah Hughes and Kelly Chang, who are back together. And I think it's a perfect storm. Like their breakup all the way, and the way it's come full circle, and the various partners they got to play with that shaped who they are now as compared to who they were then, because who they were then were pretty damn good too, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they can quickly become the number 1 seed, and I quickly foresee a rivalry between those 2 teams. I see multiple finals where they have to play each other. On the outside looking in is whoever Betsy Flint plays with, because she always finds her way to the finals. And then
Betsy's been great, and Sponsel's been great.
Yeah.
I mean, like there's
I like Betsy and Scholes was good. Sponsel and Cannon, they're I don't know if they're still together, but they rolled together like a pack, like Hamilton and Brock did. They did everything together, and I think who's the guy? Davenport, I think, is a very capable coach. And they've done some good things. And I was there when they won Hermosa Beach. I was also there when Theo Brunner and Chalk won Hermosa Beach, and Davenport was coaching both those teams. So it was a pretty good talk about home. We had a conversation about home field advantage. They practice on 24th Street in Hermosa Beach, so it was right there. So
yeah, very helpful. Well, he's saying it's again a combination at the highest level of skill, but also how teams mesh, right? Because like the Brazilians, their federation, they kind of end up a lot of times choose, from what my understanding is, they choose a little bit more of some of the partnerships. And again, on paper, you're usually talking about a few of the best players in the world, but sometimes that doesn't always necessarily make the best team. And so obviously with Sarah and Chang, they have, obviously a lot of history being an amazing team together. And so that's why everyone's on top of them each being individually really amazing players. Everyone's kind of shooing them in, almost starting to pencil them in for a spot just because they've had so much success together. But that can be the tricky thing with other partnerships, is there's some that seem to work really well, and then others that are a little bit, feel like they should work really well on paper and a little bit more.
Well, they have a TKN problem though. I'll tell you that. They got a Kristen Nuss and Taryn Cloth problem. They got 2 girls. I said this before. There's not very many killers in this game. When I say killers, I mean Misty May. I mean Jackie Silva, turning the clock way back. The type of person that, like, if you serve them, they have this attitude like they're going to F you up and make you wish you never did. And there are a lot of female players on the scene that are aggressive and have a little bit of that, but they're not true killers. The only true killers right now that are currently in the game are Betsy Flint and Kristen Nuss. I can't say that about Sponsel. As much as I like her, I can't say that about Sarah Hughes. Can they play? Yes. Are they champions? Yes. Are they ballers? Yes. But I cannot insult the real killers of the game by putting everybody in that same category. So Chang and Hughes they got a TKN problem because those girls are choosing to march to the beat of their own drum. They are, a lot of people said they should move out here to get competition. They're like, no thanks, we're good. We save more money, go 2 weeks at a hotel, train out there, train here, train whatever. The state of Louisiana, the lieutenant governor called them and said they're sponsored by the state of Louisiana.
Nice.
You got Drew Hamilton as your coach. You, as a player, and I'm going to give you the floor because I could talk about volleyball all day. As a player in this professional sport, you have to go where the good coaching is, and you have to go where the good training facility is because you can visit wherever you want. Don't be coming to California where they pick up all your secrets. They pretend to be your friend, and the whole time they're picking up all your secrets on how to beat you. Get the hell out of here with that. They know what they're doing.
Yeah, but at the same point in time, I mean, so one, like you don't, because at the highest level, like say it's really kind of training on your specific things. You don't have to go against other amazing teams all the time, right? Like there's a level as you're trying to work your way up that you kind of do need that competition against other qualifying level teams or against the occasional open level or main draw team to really kind of test where you're at and kind of see where some of your flaws are. But especially as a qualifier team, right? Because you don't get a chance to play the main draw guys or even some of the top qualifier guys because we're coming from all around the country. And so you're locally, you might think, oh, well, this works all the time, but suddenly, so for in Texas, I should have qualified in Hermosa with Orlando another year, but we lost. Yeah, we lost in a 3-setter, and I needed to side out better, is what it came down to, and I didn't do well enough hitting some high lines over Andy Brennish. But we don't see a lot of USC middle blockers in Austin, Texas, right? There's no men's indoor volleyball in Texas. And so you don't have blockers of that size here to go against. And so there were about maybe 3 plays where he didn't block, but just got enough of a piece of a high line that would go down in Texas every day of the week. But once he barely touched him, Cole was able to pick him up. They turned him in a couple points, and then you lose by a couple points in the last round to qualify in the 3rd set. But you can't. So for me, for that part of it was hard to really put into practice without going against someone of that level, like right. So now you can come back home and try to train on that specific thing, but it's a little challenging once you're at the highest level, like they are. You know all those things about all the other players. Hey, this is going to be a problem, or I've got to do this to beat, a block by Chung or to beat Sarah's defense and those kind of components. And so you can train that and just run the drills, because the drills are really more where it's at than playing the games against the other people. But to understand how good that drill has to be, the proficiency you have to run that drill with in order to beat the top level players can be challenging when you're a qualifying team not from California that doesn't get to play against elite competition all the time. Fortunately, Texas has we've gotten some taller blockers in the last few years, which have made it easier. But no, I don't play as competitively as much. So
no, I think we're both echoing the sentiments of iron sharpening iron. There's definitely no debate about that. That's we can have an argument about agreeing on that, but for the fans. But at the end of the day, you and I see eye to eye on that. I was actually making more reference to the sample size of the iron sharpening iron, right? Like I'll give you 2 examples, both from New Orleans, right? Evan Corey moved out here. Right? Still searching for, at the time, trying to figure out the whole partner situation. At the same time, getting great reps. He's with the USA volleyball team, Jose, surrounded by a whole bunch of Brazilian coaches, fine-tuning him, playing against Andy Benesh, playing against all these good players, and doing what he has. And then you got Kristen Nuss and Taryn Cloth, who make the trip out here 6 times a year, and that's the perfect storm for them. They won the most titles last year, right? Not being here. And there are levels to that, but there are also levels to that, right? There's Qatar. Does Qatar do training groups? No, they do not. They'll make the trip to Spain because Caveira and Herrera, one of the oldest teams, they're more than willing to accommodate them. Mullen Sorum, who have the volleyball academy out there in Norway, so I think you, like you said, you have to have a healthy balance of not just knowing what someone looks like, but the actual feel of being in there with them, right? The old saying is you're not going to get better at something by not doing it, right? So you can't play against guys like Andy Benesh without having Andy Benesh sometimes, right? You can't. There's no way to simulate that.
There's no, you
no.
can think, oh, this is what it's going to be like.
Yeah.
But again, especially someone for me who grew up playing basketball and picked up beach
Mm-hmm.
volleyball as a sport after graduating college,
Yep.
like you don't have, like you have an idea, but stepping into the ring, stepping into the court with that type of player and athlete is different than what you think. kind of going back to, was I nervous playing in that qualifier? I wasn't, not because I'd played in a beach volleyball situation with that many people, but I played enough basketball and other sports with a crowd that the crowd wasn't going to affect me. But if you had only ever played, even if you'd only ever played on Hermosa Beach and trained with some good players, and now suddenly you're having to play in front of 1,000 people, it might have an impact on you because it's not a situation that you're used to playing. There's a reason, especially in the men's side, that a lot of times the more veteran players are the ones that tend to do better. One, I think it's that they understand that a high line's every bit as good as a smash kill that everyone's going to go nuts over. And so they sometimes make the smarter shot, but it's also just the reps of being in those situations are usually beneficial. And even though Mole and Sorum are super young, they've been doing it at a super high level for a long time because of their volleyball academy.
Right.
And so people don't take that into account when they think you can get your 10,000 hours whenever you want. They just started a lot younger than us.
It's also superior coaching too. Let's just call it what it is. They have better coaching out there. And they're, I always say, as far as positive reinforcement, the combination of positive reinforcement and tough love, no championship exists exclusively on one or the other, but those guys are hardcore out there, and they're so thick-skinned and so prepared mentally for tough situations that you don't see them melt. You don't see.
Again, it's crazy how often they'll go to a 3-set, but still always pull it out. Like it's just it'd be interesting to see what their percentage of winning the percentage of matches that are won in a third set, because it feels like it's at 90-some%, which just seems crazy at that level.
Or in your experience as a player and my experience as a player and a coach, we can tell the people coming up after us that championships are not won on blowouts. They're won on 2-point victories. On a smaller scale, I had a high school team in New York that won the PSALs, the 38-1 record. And we were 39-3 in games decided by 2 points. So you look at a 38-1 record, but you look at the sets won by 2 points. 39-3. That record can go another way if you lose some of those sets. So, but great year. That was 2014 PSAL champs. Good kids. Madison Square Garden. They gave me Coach of the Year for that. So that was fun.
That's awesome.
That was fun.
That's really cool.
But honestly, like, those are just the smartest kids I've ever. I mean, these are grad student type high school kids. Hunter High School led the nation in recruitments, in cumulative SAT scores, and Ivy League application acceptance for 15 straight years.
Your typical volleyball powerhouse.
Yeah, the first championship team to produce no NCAA players, and we know why, right? Like,
that's awesome.
If you get accepted to Yale, right? Does Yale have a volleyball team? No, they don't. They don't have a men's volleyball team. George Santos might think they have a volleyball team, but they don't, all right? Remember that guy, that politician? There's a politician in New York that ran on like 15 different lies and got elected. The one lie that I hated was the volleyball lie. I can forgive anything in politics, right? If someone lies and says they work for Goldman Sachs, or they turn down Citicorp, or they're actually Jewish, which is a big New York lie, and you get elected, you know what? I look at that person and I'm like, all of those lies, and I'm like, he's going to become president someday. He's going to be president someday. But when he started lying about volleyball, he said he got like a full volleyball scholarship.
Across the line,
yeah. He went too far. He said he got a full athletic scholarship at Baruch College. And the year he played, they wiped the floor with Harvard and Yale. And I'm like, first of all, New Yorkers already knew it. But anyone that plays volleyball, it doesn't pass your sniff test, right? Yeah. Like, again, Yale doesn't have an NCAA team. and two, Baruch is Division III, and Division III doesn't offer athletic scholarships. So you're like, oh, idiot, you know. But in 2010, they did wipe the floor. They did wipe the floor with Harvard, though. In 2010,
when you're used to lying, it's you don't you feel like you don't have to fact check your lies.
Yeah. Well, from one honest person to another, I quote Jesse Ventura. What did he say? He says, "If you tell the truth, you don't have to have a good memory."
There you go. That's a good one.
So, how do you find real estate rewarding? I'm going to ask you the tough question. I'm going to seem, I guess, get ready for it. In a trade that's motivated mostly by monetary gain, where like there's very few people that say they get into real estate because they love it. They get into real estate because they want to make money, right?
Sure.
And I wrote this question down because I veer off sometimes. So the question is, how do you find reward in a business that leans more towards monetary gain as a mission?
Yeah. So I think the way I got into real estate is probably different than most other people. Like I was working at Bank of America for a few years and then got into their mortgage department. And so did mortgages for a number of years and then was kind of ready to be done with the huge corporate America life and having to not be able to get things done because of all the red tape and bureaucracy. And so when I was going to leave there, I was like, well, I could go and become a mortgage loan officer somewhere else. Or with that knowledge, I could be like, oh, I could go and be a real estate agent and then have potentially more freedom and more, but also more responsibility, right? Like there's plenty of people who have their real estate license who don't do it as a full-time job. But if you talk to them about it, I'm sure would love to tell you that they did an amazing, year last year kind of thing. And so, so I didn't get in it specific. Yeah. Right.
I have one from New York, but sorry, I got I took the test. Sorry, go ahead.
But yeah. Right. Like, and again, nothing wrong with people that have their license, but also at the same point in time, like if if you've had your license for 4 years and you've only helped your sister and your brother-in-law, like, then don't say that you're a top luxury agent in Austin, Texas. Like that's not, but so I didn't necessarily get in it just because I'm like, oh, real estate, that's a way to make money. It was like I was already had it as a career and was like, well, I just want to veer away from the mortgage side of things into the real estate side of things. And so, but you're running your own business, you're 100% commission based. So there's definitely a draw, good and bad, to, hey, if I work really hard, I can make a decent amount of money. But you also, it really kind of comes down to your personal values, right? Like there's definitely agents that I've seen who have done stuff that I would never do, that is shady, that probably unethical. I don't know necessarily illegal per se, but I would say is pretty
we could use the word grimy. Go ahead.
Right. And so it's like, but if you really want to do, like, if you're not in it to try to make a quick buck, which you can be you can try to make a quick buck in a lot of things. That you can try to be coaching volleyball and make a quick buck, just doing summer programs and not be a good coach, but know, hey, I know there's a lot of parents in this rich neighborhood that will pay for their kids to go somewhere. So it really comes down to why you want to do something. And for me, I want to build a career out of it. And so the biggest way that you're going to build a career out of something is by having good referrals, like you had mentioned. I appreciate that are people who are going to want to refer their friends and family and want to do repeat business with you. And so to do that, you have to put their interest ahead of your own. Like it can't be a matter of, hey, we need to close, like too many agents, because they're not doing a ton of business, feel stressed about having to close a deal because they need to make a commission check. Where no, the thing you have to do is this the right thing for my clients? Is this the right property? Is this the right situation? If they need to back up because the inspection is, isn't, not that it's an awful home, but it just is too much and is stressing them out and they need to back out. And so it's really about, as much as you can have that pull of like, well, hey, if I say the right thing and do the right thing, that also means I don't get paid now. You have to know that it really is going to benefit you long term to do the right thing. And so unfortunately, too many people are short-sighted in that.
That's a very good answer because, I guess it comes down to the individual. Like, do you sleep at night? How do you sleep at night? What do you tell your kids? when your kids, people ask what does daddy do, and at some point you want to be like, I want my kid to say this.
I heard a good quote not that long ago. It said, how you make your money is more important than how much money you make. Right. So like, are you honest and ethical in how you're actually making your money versus, oh, great, I made XYZ and someone else, made half of that.
Yeah.
So again, in the short term, it may seem like the person that was unethical or, grimy and made more money, is driving the nicer car and seems like they're winning, but usually it doesn't play out that way.
Right. Or the older saying is, what is it profit of man if he gains the world but loses his soul? Right. Yep. My answer to that is always, how much are we talking about? There are compensations.
Profit that I'm selling my soul for.
There are compensations. Give me 3 bullet points on something that makes you a successful realtor in Austin. I guess maybe, for example, in terms of just knowing your area, location, the market flow. Give me 3 good examples. People want to be a better realtor. They know about Mr. Troy Schlicker here. The floor is yours, my man.
No, I'd say one we kind of touched on it. First thing is communication, right? Like having good communication with people, getting back to them timely manner, being able to discuss things in terms that they're going to understand, and also listening. I've had plenty of clients who will end up working with me who were like, yeah, 6 months ago we were kind of working with this other agent and they were taking us to homes that were not of interest to us at all. Like it was like the agent bought this home, they liked this home, so of course you're going to like this home. And it's like, I've sold homes that I would never personally buy, not because they were bad homes, but because this is what my client wanted, and my idea of what I want in a home is different than that. And so communication and listening to your clients for sure. Another big bullet point for me has definitely been that mortgage experience, right? So I understand a lot of real estate agents aren't necessarily always as good with the numbers. The numbers are easy for me. And so being able to understand that and help people with the mortgage side of things, the understanding what they're going to profit from on a home, why we should sell it at this price. And so understanding the numbers is important as well too. And then again, I think the other big thing is having an understanding that this is going to be one of the most stressful month or so of someone's life when they're ready to buy or sell a home, right? And they're in the middle of that process. Like life doesn't, just because you have to now sell your largest asset or buy something that's 10 times more than the car you bought, doesn't mean that the rest of your life gets put on hold. And so all the work stuff you have going on, all the family stuff you have going on gets added to the fact that you now are considering a 30-year mortgage on $1 million property when the most expensive thing you've ever bought in your life is a $40,000 or $50,000 car, $80,000 car. Like can be a little daunting. And so understanding that people are going to have stress about it, have second thoughts, and be able to just talk them through it, and kind of going back to the communication and making sure it's in their best interest, and is kind of the other big thing. Knowing the markets is definitely important, but that the market also changes depending on the client, right? Like, if you have a client that's looking at condos versus, single family homes and the good school district, that'll kind of change some of the market dynamics that you need to keep top of mind.
Did you notice somewhat of an exodus the last 2 or 3 years, Californians moving to Austin?
Yeah, I mean, California has always been, or since I've lived here, I've been in Austin now for about 18 years. About the entire time I've lived here, California has always been the number one out-of-state area for people to relocate to Austin from. Having the big tech space here makes it relatively easy for a lot of the people from Silicon Valley to, we have Google offices, Apple offices, all those kind of things. And so it's very easy to transfer and still work here. And so we definitely saw during the pandemic, a lot of people from California, more people from the Northeast, although I think a lot of them moved more Florida. Yeah. Kind of had people New York down to Florida, and then kind of West Coast to Texas and Arizona. But we got more Northeast than we had generally, of people who were like, well, I don't why would I live in a studio apartment that I can't leave, or a tiny one bedroom? As nice as Hermosa Beach was, if you're not even allowed to go on the beach, which was a crazy concept to
That
me.
was, yeah.
Like, you can social distance and get some exercise on the beach, but whatever.
It's the very
And
essence of
so,
social distancing.
yeah, right. Like, yeah, okay. But anyway, so yeah, we definitely saw an influx, but it's always been the state where the most kind of people are coming from out of state. But we actually see way more intrastate movement, which happens, I think, in a lot of states that you don't always
Okay.
think about. Like, there's more Dallas and Houston and San Antonio people, and also people moving around to the four cities for different things that way, even more so. But we definitely saw an influx from other areas that were not as, where the cost of living was more expensive. And so if you're going to have to be stuck at home all the time, why not have a 3-bedroom house instead of a 1-bedroom apartment?
Right.
And
Makes
where
sense.
you could, and in states that where you could actually go for a walk and not have that be a big issue.
Yeah, I have a friend, Carter Miles, who's a big yoga guy that moved from California. He had he's basically a rock star here in the South Bay. I'm like, why,
Yeah.
why the hell did you leave? But there are a lot of the reasons that you explained in your
Yeah, like you'll hear
in your
yoga studios. I
diatribe.
mean, some were doing smaller classes, some would do it outside. Like, they were
Yeah.
just, they were still being safe, but it wasn't like stop doing any physical activity. Like, that just doesn't make any sense if you're trying to keep people healthy either.
No, no doubt, no doubt. But I miss that guy. I miss a lot of people, and that's the reason why I was asking. Is there's a lot of my friends that were like, "To hell with this, I'm moving to Texas." We talked about Rogan in and out of this podcast, right? He lives in Texas right now, so I definitely appreciate that, and I definitely appreciate the bullet points. I also appreciate, like you saying, knowing how long you want to be somewhere, what your situation is. As a New Yorker, right? I have friends that live in a hole in the wall for like $2,500 a month, but they're single. They don't spend a lot of time in their place. They're traveling a lot. They have a nightlife.
They like the rest of what New York has to offer them,
Yeah.
right? To be able to, the connections, the food, the restaurants, the nightlife, the social
Location.
life,
New
all
York
those things.
location is everything in the world.
Yeah.
I'm born in Brooklyn, Flatbush Avenue, which is nicer now, but that's definitely not my mommy's and daddy's Flatbush right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Then for a little while I lived in Queens, which in Forest Hills, Kew Gardens got so expensive. I just moved to the city. I was like, if I'm going to pay this much, why do I got to cross a bridge to go to work? I might as well just. So I lived in Harlem, got my cheap on, put myself through college. That was a 2-bedroom place because I got a 2-bedroom place before, Bill Clinton decided to live there. And then I finished eventually on owning a place on 87th and West End, which is near the park. My favorite karaoke spot. On 86 is a parlor, right? The beach courts are, in fact, the beach courts were closer via walk from 87th from where I was to the actual beach here in Hermosa Beach. So yeah, great love triangle, and some of the best restaurants in the world, of course, Lincoln Center, Shakespeare in the Park, whatever. It's just it was very much like Austin, so.
Yeah, I mean, culturally, you can't compare to be able to have so many authentic, restaurants, and obviously all the other components, museums, and things that happen in New York City. It's a fun place to visit. At one point in time, I thought I might try to live there for just a couple of years. I knew it would never be like a long term thing if I ever did, but now I've realized that I just enjoy visiting, and because when you live there, you got to work there, and so that doesn't sound near as exciting.
Yeah, right. And honestly, it really depends on what you're doing there. Like, I worked in a cardiology practice for 17 years, so I was kind of rat racing the commute. And then, when my boss retired and they basically let go of the staff, I'm like, this is a good time to get like 3 volleyball jobs. So, and man, let me tell you something, and this is for everybody listening, because I know I sound like I'm making everything about me, but I'm so not. If you're not a 9-to-5 person, you need to fight like hell to change that situation, as if your life depends on it, because it really does. Not casting any aspersions on 9-to-5 people. There are people that have value in knowing that they have to be somewhere at a certain time. They're putting in the work. Maybe they like the work, maybe they don't, but that's not relevant. They're in. They know they get to leave at a certain time, and good for them, because that's their stream. But if that's not your stream, man, trust me. Ooh, 17
I
years
would
is a
say not
long
even,
time.
I would say not even just like if you don't like 9 to 5, but right, like if you literally have, what they call it, like the Sunday scaries, like if you dread the thought of Monday rolling around, like you need to try to get into something else because
Yes.
not that being able to go play beach volleyball shouldn't be more fun than what you do for a living potentially. But at the same point in time, like you have to spend your, however old you are. I'm 43 now, so I'm gonna, have to work for at least the next 30 years, probably longer than that, because hopefully I'll enjoy it. But like even if you only work 40 hours a week for the next, 30 years, that's a whole lot of effing hours to have to work to not somewhat enjoy it, if not really enjoy it. And
Right.
so definitely say, yeah, I would agree 100%. You have to fight like hell to try to um,
As
enjoy
as if
it as
your
much
life.
to get to a place where you can enjoy it. And there are definitely times right now, right? The economy's a little bit trickier now, so you might have to stay in a job that you don't like quite as much because there aren't a bunch of jobs opening. Companies have been laying people off, and
Mm.
there are people that have to put kids through school, and there's all different kinds of situations. But like I say, that doesn't mean you don't try to fight to make it happen if at all possible.
Yeah, I got to tell you, the job I had though, look, I already knew it wasn't a career, but I knew that the flexibility of the job allowed me to do a bunch of things. It allowed me to, go on auditions. My major is theater performance. It allowed me to coach NCAA all of those part-time positions on the East Coast, which are really like full-time work, but part-time positions. Um, and the boss who I worked for was like this doctor of the stars, and there was so much stuff that happened in and out of that office. I can write a memoirs on just the celebrities that come in and out, and him being in movies. He was in A Beautiful Mind because he knew Dr. Nash. He was in
Okay.
Men on the Moon because he knew Andy Kaufman, and a lot of those movies he played himself. He played Dr. Rosenfeld. So just it was just a great. I think for that time period, it's so well worth it. But
Yeah.
you and I are very, very much in agreement, and as a teaching tool to people, like, it could be a good time or it can suck, and if it sucks, man, fight like hell to change it, as if your life depends on it. So I guess I want to do lightning rounds. We do these I do with all of my guests at the end.
Huh? I'll see if I can be brief.
Let's do that 60 seconds. Well, the way, I mean, look, you're all about your business. You're probably going to be done in 35 seconds. So, but I'm setting the clock at 1 minute just to see what's up. And is it up? There it is. There goes our minute.
It is.
All right, so let's begin. Favorite comedian?
Oh, Jim Carrey.
Last good book you read?
I can't think of the name. There's a book out by the FBI hostage negotiator, and I can't think of what the book's called right now.
All right, we'll come back.
That's going to drive me nuts. I'll have to get top line.
Marvel or DC?
Marvel.
Pool or beach?
Beach.
Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter?
Lord of the Rings.
Favorite sport outside of beach volleyball?
Basketball.
Favorite action film star growing up?
Probably Harrison Ford.
The one person in the history of time you'd like to have dinner with and pick their brain?
I do not know. There's so many good ones.
My horn didn't honk. The horn was supposed to honk when the time
like
hit
it would be
zeros.
like-
You're supposed to hear beep
yeah.
beep.
Like
on.
maybe like Michelangelo or somebody from,
Yeah.
because I think it'd just be an interesting time period as well as somebody whose mind would be kind of like Da Vinci.
Right. Hold on. We gotta go back because we have to hear the horn. Where is it?
So
And
Da Vinci.
there it is. Leonardo.
Right, you just edit that out. No, perfect. It never
Come check out the option. Nice.
always worked perfect.
No, I put everything in real time. There's only
No, you're good.
I had Chrissy Jones. That was the only time I've ever edited out something in an episode because we both told a joke that we thought was funny and then we didn't smile. And she's like, can we take that out? She's one of the good girls. So yeah, and I'm also a fan of hers. Between you and me, like I'm a volleyball purist. So I don't actually follow particular players, but with that being said, I have 3 exceptions on the men and 3 exceptions on the women. So the women is TKN, that's 2, and Chrissy Jones, who's not even playing right now. And for the men, it's Theo and Trevor, who are actually now on the same team. They're teaming up, and Eric Baranek.
Nice.
You know, I like guys that allow people to take the journey with them. It's just that type of character that's inviting, you know? So,
yeah.
Troy, anyone that wants to get with you and has questions or just a fan of yours, where can they, is there a particular site, IG handle, stuff like that?
I would go, so I have a website and that you can find IG handles or LinkedIn or phone numbers if you want to get in touch with, you know, real estate stuff. So it's just my name, TroySchlicker.com.
I like it. All right. So Troy might love you guys, but I don't love you guys. In fact, I can't stand you. So for all of you at home, for all of you on your iPad, for all of you on your desktop or Droid or whatever it is, who runs the world, baby? Old school people. Old school from my man, Troy Schlicker, right there. There he is. I'm Jason DeBillius. This is 167 of the Option Podcast. Stay with me as I'm going to hit my music, but we are out of here. Come check out the Option Podcast on optionvb.com. It's also available on iTunes and Spotify and on YouTube under the NY Varsity Sports handle. You're going to love what you hear.